Healthy Rebel Radio is sponsored by the Healthy Rebel app. 300 plus secretly healthy, delicious, mouth-watering dessert and treat recipes made with all-natural, whole food ingredients. Now available for download on the App Store and Google Play. Find out more details at healthyrebel.com.
Welcome to Healthy Rebel Radio. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. I'm here with my Daily Health Healthy Rebel co-founder, Amy Lane. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start by talking about something that comes up a lot in practice. I ask a lot of questions about digestion.
Yes.
One of the core questions that most naturopaths ask and cover is bloating. Pretty much with, in every initial visit, every visit revolving around digestive concerns, immune concerns, we ask about bloating. And it's something that you and I have talked about a lot because a lot of your clients have been suffering from bloating. Mm-hmm. And it came up today in the news. The NBC Today blog is talking about 10 bad habits to break to stop belly bloat. And I'm curious to see what your tips are. What your experience has been with bloating, what you recommend to people, and how you feel about the topic.
For sure. So I think the main thing to avoid with bloating is kind of a common sense approach. Avoid overeating. So being present while you eat and eating until you're satisfied, not stuffed.
Definitely.
I think that we've all become accustomed to it being normal to overeat, and it's not. It's an unhealthy habit. So just eating to fuel, eating to be satisfied, slowing down, being present during your meal, enjoying, savoring food, chewing, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. That's huge, I think. Another thing for me is getting enough water throughout the day. Mm-hmm. Making sure because there's nothing worse than eating a ton of fiber and then not drinking enough water to push it through.
Oh, for sure. Then you're just stuck with veggie belly.
Right, forever. And veggie belly's normal right after a meal and, maybe up to an hour and a half, 2 hours. But, you don't want to go to bed with that. So another thing is avoid eating really late is a huge one. It's just not necessary. You don't want to fuel up and then have food sitting there while you're sleeping. It's uncomfortable. You'll have active dreams. You could have heartburn. It's just not... it doesn't feel good.
Heartburn is a major one for those late meals.
Yeah.
When you have bloating, it puts that extra pressure on your stomach.
Yes, and then you lay down. Mm-hmm. It just...
Yeah, that upper sphincter opens and then you have the acid.
So, avoiding, deep fried foods is huge. There's a reason why every commercial showcases, deep fried wings and fried baskets of food.
Yeah, for acid reflux, for sure. Oh, yeah.
So avoiding overdoing it with protein as well, as in meat protein. Mm-hmm. That's a big one. It can
be really heavy. When you combine it with carbs, it can be...
It's too much.
And what happens is your body makes acid to break it down.
So, yeah, avoiding refined carbs, of course. If you're having major issues, trying to go gluten-free. And a lot of the time, it's not even, for me... the point of going gluten-free isn't necessarily to avoid a gluten sensitivity for the mass population. But for me, it's picking those easier to digest carbohydrates. Because I don't mean, don't eat gluten, but then go buy the gluten cereal, the gluten crackers, the gluten-free bread.
Yeah, all the gluten-free stuff.
No packaged anything. Mm-hmm. What I mean is, instead of those things, have, brown rice, lentils, beans, quinoa, sweet potatoes, back to real food, squashes, that type of stuff. So yeah, I guess. And for me, dairy. Just avoid dairy.
Yeah, right.
But those are my...
I love it. So we're talking about bloating, and oftentimes people will ask me, "What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What does that mean? What's the question?" And when we talk about bloating, it's usually a distended abdomen that can be painful and tense to touch, and you can feel it if your stomach is sticking out. It's not always belly fat. It can be occasionally just related to bloating. Mm-hmm. And bloating can be a few different things. Like you said, it can be related to high fiber intake. It can be related to inflammation in the digestive tract. And it can also occur premenstrually when you retain water. Yeah. And you experience bloating in the digestive region.
And the best thing you can do for that is eat healthy, and drink lots of water.
Definitely.
Of course, avoiding overuse of sodium is another.
Yeah, it's really important.
So what are they saying?
So, well, before I get to them, I want to get to what they say, but you've covered most of what they had to say because it's more about avoiding things.
Oh, okay.
But with these different types of bloating, it's important to know when it's occurring for you and what it is. If it's premenstrually, you'll know. Mm-hmm. If it's right after meals, that's important to know. Mm-hmm. If it's all the time, that's important to know.
Yeah, that is.
And if it's random, that's important to know because that changes things. So the first category I'd like to start with is the one that's right after meals. Like you said, it's mostly related to veggie belly. That can be a major cause where you have a high fiber meal. Maybe more fiber than you're used to. That's absolutely normal. If you know you've had broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, or beans and legumes, then you can associate that with high vegetable intake. That's fine, no problem. Unless it doesn't go away in a couple hours. The other right after meal cases that I see are, like you said, the heavy protein, heavy carb meals that are then related to acid reflux, heartburn. And there's different treatments you want to do to get it to prevent that. One is, like you said, not eating late, and the other is not eating till you're overly stuffed. So this is a major thing with me. I've always eaten until that sense of fullness. I've had to watch that. Yeah. And you have to teach people that all the time, don't you? I mean, it's a really common thing in our society. We eat until we're full. That's what we do. So portion control is really important in that sense. Now, if you're doing portion control, you're not eating high fiber meals, and you're still getting it, then often that's related to an enzyme deficiency. You just don't have high enough enzymes to break down the food you're eating. And that can be related to a lot of things, the inflammatory process in the digestive tract, or an imbalance in the healthy flora, which... So there's two treatments for this. There's probiotics and there's digestive enzymes. The worst case I ever saw was someone with a vegan who had constant painful bloating after meals. It ended up being HCl. Their stomach acid was low. We did the HCl challenge and it went away and changed everything. So with the bloating after meals, there's a lot of things to consider, and it could literally be just low enzymes.
I also want to put in one other caveat because I do most of my coaching online. Sometimes, especially when someone's extremely lean or looking to have a super lean figure, there's a misperception between what actual bloating is. Okay. So I've seen this as well. So someone will, what I'll request is they'll say they're bloating, we'll go through all the things, they're still bloating, so then I'll request photos. So send me a photo first thing in the morning, and then send me a photo when you feel this bloating is happening. And more than once I've received the images where it's not bloating. It's just normal throughout the day. You're holding water, you're holding fiber. Like if you're a very lean person and you want to have abs 24/7, especially as a woman, that is very challenging. Even the women you see on magazines, first of all, they've manipulated their diets for weeks. They're dehydrated. There's very few women in this world that actually hold abs after a meal.
No, you're seeing them at a very specific time that's been calculated for weeks.
Purposely. Oh, yeah. And that's fine. There's, as long as you're healthy, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a negative thing, but there's a misperception, yes, you're going to be lean first thing in the morning after you have your first bowel movement and use the washroom. That's just reality. You can hold pounds and pounds of fiber and waste in your stomach, and as long as you're being healthy, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's actually a good thing.
Right. But there's going to be a difference between, 5 o'clock and 6 a.m. if you're a really lean person. When you wake up and you have those washboard abs, you may be a little more rounded out by supper. That's not bloating. That's not abnormal. No. We've been brainwashed by these magazine covers that we're all supposed to, that those women look like that 24/7. And the reality is there's very few that do. And the ones that do are genetically gifted.
Definitely.
It has nothing to do with anything more.
No, you're so right on. And we've seen cases, we've seen medical cases of people with edema, fluid retention in their abdomen being like the most severe case of bloating, and we've seen veggie belly cases, and then we've seen this case that you're bringing up, and then we've seen PMS cases and have recognized the difference between those. For sure. And there's all these different situations.
You have to become clear, and I think working with a professional can help you. as long as, you're honest and clear and, about
Agreed.
what's going on. Because sometimes we analyze ourselves and we almost manipulate things that they're worse than what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that some people aren't having major issues with this, because they are.
Oh,
Digestion
definitely.
is a huge problem right now. But I also want to be very clear that if you believe you should look like that magazine cover 24 hours a day, no matter what's going on, I would say maybe 0.1% of the population is capable of that.
Oh, I absolutely agree, and thank you for bringing it up, because it's really important.
Yeah.
The second case that I wanted to go over was this inflammatory case where someone has been either recently on antibiotics or on antibiotics in their history and never replenished with good probiotics. This can be a very common thing that I see, and often related to candida, or we'll give it a blanket name of a dysbiosis in the digestive tract. There's an imbalance in flora. If you've been on antibiotics and didn't replenish with probiotics, this might be you. Yeah. Some of the symptoms, the core one would be bloating. Another one would be foggy brain. Another one would be athlete's foot, really susceptible to getting athlete's foot. Another one would be a white coat on the tongue.
So yeast infections for women probably then?
Yeast infections for women is a major one. So if you're suffering from yeast infections, you feel like your memory is a little weaker, you're fatigued, and you have bloating, then it's time to consider, okay, wait, was I on antibiotics? Did I replenish? Has my diet been supportive of healthy probiotics? And
sometimes your diet can be healthy, but you still don't have that appropriate dose of probiotics to get back up to a healthy level.
Exactly. And it's a really easy one to fix in these cases where someone has recently been on antibiotics. You take a good probiotic and it at the right dose. I'm not talking about having a yogurt one afternoon.
No.
Because it just doesn't do the trick in most cases. So that could be something to consider.
Yeah.
And you've probably heard about candida in the news many times. You and I have conversations about candida, and really what we're talking about when we talk about candida is a dysbiosis.
Right.
There's a problem happening with your good bacteria.
Candida's kind of been now touted as just like a blanket term.
A blanket term for sure. And we see it a lot. There are cases where we see people who definitely have a yeast overgrowth.
Oh, for sure.
So it's something to consider if you're suffering from all these things at once.
But what's frustrating is I feel like it's become general knowledge, or what the information that's been spread is, you just have to follow the candida diet and then you'll be candida free.
Oh, yes. No, it does not work.
And that's a misinformation. And I think it's because a lot of people will start to feel a little bit better while they're doing the candida diet, whatever, and then they kind of just take one step off, or they just don't get better. So you have to talk to a professional. I really believe that you have to attack it from all sides, or it's just not going to work.
Well, you definitely do, and we know now that there's a new condition that's associated with IBS and bloating, which is called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, which similar symptoms to candida, similar symptoms to IBS, but it's a different condition. It's a different situation. So you want to get help, basically, is what we're saying. The third case of bloating would be premenstrual, PMS associated bloating. And I know that you've worked with a lot of people on this.
Yes.
And your core recommendation has been dandelion leaf tea.
Well, no, my core recommendation
your core recommendations you already went over. Those are excellent.
Is eating healthy, drinking water, exercising, reducing added sodium, and I really believe taking out dairy. I do. I've seen it work a million times. That's what I believe. I think it's a hormonal disruptor. I think that we're going to learn way more in these upcoming years. And I think we should all just jump ahead of the curve. So I really believe that. Then, for added support, if you are bloated, then the dandelion tea.
Definitely. So dandelion tea is a weak diuretic, and when you take it, you notice that you go to the washroom, you pee a lot more.
Right. So if it's one of those things, if you're uncomfortable with bloating, or if you have an event and you have PMS,
Helpful.
The worst thing you can do when you have PMS is to indulge in the things that are touted as PMS cravings. The worst thing you can do is have the sugar, have the chocolate, have the fatty foods. Those are the worst things you can do. You're making your PMS worse. The cleaner and the more consistent you are with your lifestyle, the better your PMS symptoms will be.
Completely agree. And the reason being, you're you're making changes to your hormones artificially.
Right.
Right, and these symptoms that occur premenstrually are related to hormone changes, and when you do things that disrupt them, like you said with the dairy, but sugar's a main one. Sugar, stress.
I mean, what we told as PMS craving foods like ice cream with chocolate and chips. It's exactly the opposite thing. Like, you're literally feeding the fire of PMS.
Exactly.
You are literally causing, bloating, headaches, all the disruptive, worst cramps, all the crap that you don't want. You're fueling that fire by indulging in those things.
Definitely.
So, people will say, well, what do you do about cravings? Well, I'm an adult. So what I do is I make higher choices. So if I am craving chocolate so bad that I may lose my mind, I know that if I have that chocolate during that time, I'm going to have worse PMS. I'm going to break out. I'm going to have worse bloating. Why would I want to cause more pain? So what I'll do instead is I'll have an organic chocolate-flavored tea. Put a few drops of stevia in that. It's warming, it's soothing, it's filling, and it's satisfying.
Absolutely.
It's making empowering choices.
Well, and one of the most empowering choices you usually would make in this situation is you would plan a treat.
Right, but a lot of the time I make sure that there's no of those added things during that time because it'll make my... a great thing, if you're craving chocolate, is the avocado chocolate mousse with stevia instead of an added sugar. Because that gives you the healthy fats, it's soothing, it's nourishing, it totally hits the craving spots, yet...
nutrient dense and everything. I mean, you get so much from it compared with having just straight chocolate.
Just crap,
Definitely. So we've covered the three main types of bloating. I mean, the type of bloating that's sort of all the time, that's something you need to investigate. That could be something large, or it could be a medical condition that you need to do lab testing for and that type of thing. And
maybe you need to reach out to someone, whether it's someone on our program. You can reach out to me and do this photo challenge. Like, I need to decipher, am I having real bloating here, or am I being really harsh on myself? Because sometimes... when we're zeroed in on ourselves, like I said, like it's like wearing a white suit and there's a speck on that white suit and all we can focus on is that speck. Where we have this beautiful white suit that's impeccable otherwise on. Right. So sometimes we just zero in on that thing and we drive ourselves crazy. So sometimes we just need an outside opinion. So if you have access to a naturopath, you could go to a naturopath. If you're on our program, you can email me.
Email your symptoms, and we'll send questions back, definitely. Right. I mean, as you said that, it reminded me of one core thing that we haven't discussed: bowel movements. I mean, if you're not having a bowel movement every day, or at least every 2 days,
that's why you're
bloated. That's why you're bloated. That's the cause.
Yeah.
So consider that if
and that needs to be handled ASAP.
Definitely. So let's cover just quickly what the Today Show posted on their blog this morning, and these are some of the things you immediately went over when we first started talking about bloating today on the show. If you're suffering from minor bloating after a meal, some of the things that could be the cause: eating too fast,
air with your just gulping her down.
Right, and in saying that, the other thing would be drinking from a straw, can be the cause. Yeah, so that's something to watch out for.
Everyone tries to get me off straws all the time because they say that it'll give the same lines as if you smoke.
Yes, so true. I bet you that is true because the way that you're shaping your mouth.
Right.
Okay, we talked about fruits and vegetables. We talked about not drinking enough water. Overdoing on fiber. Salty foods we spoke about. The other things on the list that we should really talk about: artificial sweeteners.
Well, yeah, I guess I just don't want anyone taking them, period. So if this is your motivation to kick it, I think it should be more just for the fear of what these could do long term.
So artificial sweeteners have been associated with bloating, and not only from diet pop, but also from gum.
Oh yeah.
So something to consider: if you chew a lot of gum and you get bloated a lot, consider doing.
And there's different gums out there now with different options. Like there's the Pure, but I think it's just PURR with stevia.
Right.
All natural.
Purr or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to try, definitely, if you're suffering with this. The other thing was not moving after you eat. So, like you said, when you're suffering from heartburn, if you eat late and then you go lay down, that can be a cause of bloating and can also then subsequently cause a heartburn.
Digestion is stimulated by movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the time if someone's constipated, like say after surgery, the top suggestion they will make is go for a walk.
Right.
Movement stimulates the bowel.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to consider because we haven't spoken about that one.
Mm-hmm.
The final thing is, along the same lines as the dairy comment you made earlier, but it's that you need to avoid frozen yogurt. Frozen yogurt has been associated with bloating. So
why would they pick that one?
I have no idea. I mean,
frozen yogurt.
It's very strange.
Why would they say that one? Because all ice cream, all dairy, cheese. Like, why would you go with that? What's their theory on that?
Strange. I don't know.
Just because it's popular, maybe?
I guess so. The Today Show has chosen frozen yogurt as a cause of bloating. We're talking dairy. We've seen dairy cause bloating in people. It can cause inflammation in the digestive tract if you're sensitive to it. But also, we lose the enzyme to break down dairy as we age, and many people lose it when they're young, or don't have it at all. So the ability to break down dairy foods is reduced, and subsequently the probiotics have to take over if you have good probiotics, and they don't do an excellent job with dairy, and you get bloated.
The scariest thing that I've seen with dairy is them making people break out.
Definitely. Which is a symptom of poor detoxification, which is also associated with bloating.
And hormonal disruption. No one can tell me it isn't.
For sure.
It's scary to me.
Definitely. So we've covered a lot. I think there's a lot of good tidbits today about bloating. Consider what case you are, because that's really important, right? And if you're having a hard time getting clear, get some help getting clear about it.
Because it's one of those things that you can resolve easily. Well,
Absolutely.
fairly easily. And then you can feel good.
Well, and that brings up another point. People think it's normal.
I know.
And we'll go through it forever and ever. And, oh, yeah, I get bloated after meals. Or I'm bloated in the morning. Or
everyone in my family says that their stomachs hurt after dinner. Or everybody, wants to have a nap after we have a big meal. Or
it doesn't have to be the way.
Every show you watch, they're like unbuttoning their pants. And they're like, oh, no.
Right.
None of that's normal.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So true. Thank you so much for your tips. That's Healthy Rebel Radio for the day. Thanks for listening.
See you.
Healthy Rebel Radio is presented by the online health and wellness center, DamieHealth.com. Since 2009, Amy Lane has successfully coached thousands of women through her signature program, the Bikini Body Program. Join today to work exclusively with Amy to unveil your greatest yet to be from the inside out. Go to DamieHealth.com for more information.
Thank you for listening to Healthy Rebel Radio. Please connect with us on our community pages on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram, all at the handle @DamieHealth. For weekly recipes, articles, and all our episodes straight to your inbox, join our newsletter at DamieHealth.com. You can find all the links discussed in today's episode in the show notes. Thank you for joining us, and see you tomorrow.